For years, we've had this single, really powerful formula for building great teams. But what if I told you that formula might not be the whole story? Today, we're going to look at some brand new research that shows a universally accepted framework is crashing head-on with a much, much more complex reality. I mean, it's the ultimate question, right? Every leader, every manager, we all want to know that secret sauce. What's the magic recipe for a team that just clicks? A team that delivers amazing results? And for a long, long time, it really felt like we had the answer. And we had it thanks to some pretty incredible research from Google. But as you're about to see, that established wisdom, well, it's facing a major, major challenge. Okay, so let's get into it. To really understand this collision, we first have to understand the reigning champ of team frameworks, Google's famous Project Aristotle. Now, the big idea from Google's massive study was honestly revolutionary at the time. They found it wasn't about just hiring a bunch of A players. It was all about the team's dynamics. It's not who you have, it's how they work together. And that one insight, it shaped like an entire generation of management thinking. And this is what it all led to, the famous 5 keys. Right at the top, the cornerstone was psychological safety, feeling safe enough to take risks and be vulnerable. Then you had dependability, structure and clarity, meaning, and finally, impact. This looked like the perfect, universal blueprint for any high-performing team. But this is where our story takes a very sharp turn, because that seemingly perfect blueprint, it's now under fire from a huge new dataset. So this is the critical question we have to ask. Can one single formula really work for every team, in every culture, in every single situation, all around the world? Well, according to this new data from SDTEST, the answer is a huge resounding no. In fact, their research shows that trying to apply these 5 factors everywhere can seriously backfire. And why is that? It's because teams operate inside different cultural value systems. These are like deep-seated codes that tell them what's important. And in some of those systems, Google's keys don't just fail to help, they can actually undermine and even destroy a team's effectiveness.
So what's going on here? This isn't some minor disagreement. It is a fundamental collision of values. Let's break down exactly what that looks like.
Okay, I know this slide looks a little complicated, but stick with me, because the main idea here is actually pretty simple, and it's powerful. It shows the central paradox. Let's just look at psychological safety in the top left. See how for the yellow value system, it has a really strong positive correlation? But then look right below it. For the red and orange systems, it's negative. This is what the researchers call a vMeme collision. The exact same thing produces completely opposite results depending on the team's cultural DNA. What builds one team up literally tears another one down. Let's really zero in on that most famous factor, psychological safety. The data shows for what's called a yellow, or a systems thinking culture, you might find in a place like Great Britain, it's a huge positive. But for a red, power-driven culture, or an orange, achievement-focused culture, it actually has a negative impact. It's not that they don't care about it, they seem to actively reject it. And this just nails the why. For a red vMeme, think of a crisis response team or a hyper-competitive startup. What works is dominance and fast action. In that world, talking about psychological safety can feel like coddling or even weakness. What they actually need is respect and to be stacking up clear wins. And what about an orange culture? This is super common in places like tech and finance. Here, the #1 priority is performance, metrics, and speed. So psychological safety isn't rejected because it's soft, but because it's seen as something that can slow down execution. Orange teams want clear goals and dependable execution, not so much exploratory safety. Okay, now let's look at that yellow value system, because this is where things get really fascinating. For these teams, effectiveness is totally dependent on their environment, or what the research calls life conditions. So take the impact factor. In the stable life conditions of Sweden, trying to show off your individual impact is seen as being ego-driven, and it has a really strong negative correlation with effectiveness. But then look at wartime Ukraine. In that situation, under extreme stress, the pressure to show impact also correlates negatively because it just feels absurd when the entire system around you is collapsing. So, what might look like a complete contradiction is actually a super deep form of intelligence. The yellow approach isn't inconsistent, it's just radically adaptive to its specific context. So,
Here's the bottom line, the crucial points. When it comes to making a team effective, one size fits none. The whole idea of a universal framework is just collapsing under the weight of all this cultural context.
And this slide just sums it all up perfectly. The big takeaway here is that Google's framework isn't wrong, it's just not universal. It probably works brilliantly for the kinds of cultures it was developed in, likely those orange, achievement-driven ones. But like we've seen, a red culture needs respect and wins, a green culture needs a sense of holistic impact, and a blue culture needs a righteous purpose. Every system needs a different key to unlock its potential. And all of this brings us to the most important part. How do we actually apply this? It means we have to stop looking for one single magic formula and start doing the real work of understanding our own teams. So what does this mean for you? First thing, stop rolling out one-size-fits-all programs. You have to diagnose the dominant value system of your team. If you're leading a red crisis team, forget the vulnerability exercises. Focus on building respect and celebrating clear wins. If you've got an orange performance team, you need to double down on structure, clarity, and dependability. The goal here is fit, not conformity.
And that leaves us with one last, much more powerful question. We need to stop asking, how do I implement Google's 5 factors, and start asking, what are my team's unique life conditions? What's our dominant value system? And what does this specific context demand from us to be truly great? That right there is the real puzzle you need to solve.